So let's talk about what murder mystery movies I'm going to be watching this November as part of the theme month that I like to call NoveMURDER. Okay, that's dangerous. Let's put that somewhere safe. How's it going, my friends? Welcome again to the Cobwebs channel. My name is Daniel, and yeah, I decided to spend November watching murder movies, murder mysteries, and thrillers. And why am I doing this? Well, at first I thought I was going to do Noirvember. That's super popular for November, and I love it. But I went pretty hard on Noirvember last year, and I've seen a ton of noirs, and it just wasn't exciting enough to me to just do that again. And I realized there's actually a lot of murder mysteries, classic murder mysteries that I haven't seen. A lot in my collection I haven't seen. I thought this would be a great way to, yes, watch noirs, but watch some other stuff too. Plus, the idea of watching murder mysteries when the weather gets cold sounds really nice and cozy in a way that I just love. And this list of movies definitely skews older, which is also something that I really especially gravitate to when the weather gets cold. Give me a blanket and a hot drink and a black and white movie on a chilly night. Man, that is just my jam. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, I've got a bunch of subcategories here, but the first two I think are the ones I'm the most excited for. The first one is my complete Sherlock Holmes collection. This is every Sherlock Holmes movie that is starring Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. Now, when I was a kid, I loved a lot of these movies. Basil Rathbone was my Sherlock Holmes, but I've actually never gone back to these as an adult, which seems crazy. I just found out this collection came out. It came out years ago, but I wasn't aware of it. And I'm just so happy to own all 14, yes, 14 Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes films. I watched a little featurette on the first disc about the restorations, and apparently some of these were really difficult to restore, and elements were really difficult, sometimes impossible to find. So some of them are in a bit subpar quality out of necessity, but some of that makes me wonder, man, some of these may never get released again. So I'm so happy that I have this collection of films documented in my collection. I will be watching every single one, and I will do a ranking video of all 14. That's like the big centerpiece video of NoveMURDER this month that I'm super excited for. Last night, I did check out the first one, which is Hound of the Baskervilles. Really liked it. Great atmosphere. Basil Rathbone, of course, was awesome. That man is Sherlock Holmes. And I might like it even better than the 1959 Hammer version. And if you know how much I love Hammer, you know that's some high praise. Next up is a Criterion edition of Anatomy for a Murder. This is a movie that I've heard for years is phenomenal. This is actually a courtroom drama, and I think it's the only courtroom movie that I've got in this stack. So it's nice to throw that in, because that's kind of that's a cornerstone of the murder mystery genre, right? The courtroom film. And it's starring Jimmy Stewart as, I believe, a lawyer. Lawyers are usually the protagonists of these movies. It's very long. It's 2 hours and 41 minutes. So it's almost 3 hours long, but I've heard it's phenomenal. I've been meaning to watch it for a long time. I actually picked this up in the last Criterion sale. So I'm very excited to check this out. Anatomy for a Murder. Have you seen it? Let me know down in the comments. By the way, I think it's directed by Otto Preminger, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Fantastic. Director of Laura and lots of great stuff. Next up, let's talk about a franchise. So I am a huge fan of the original The Thin Man. It's one of my favorite murder mysteries of all time. I've seen it so many times. And I also really like After the Thin Man. I don't think it's quite as good, but in some ways it might actually be a little bit better. And the dialogue writing is so sharp. And I also really enjoy Another Thin Man. It's super fun. But despite the fact that I own them all from Warner Archive Blu-ray, I have not seen the last three. There's 6 The Thin Man movies. I've only seen half. Yes, I am the bozo who watched The Thin Man over and over again instead of checking out all the sequels. What a mistake. No, it's never a mistake to watch The Thin Man. So the next one I have to watch is Shadow of the Thin Man, which I don't really know anything about. Looking forward to that. The Thin Man Goes Home, which I've heard is great. It's where I think he goes home to visit his parents, William Powell, the main character, the titular detective of these films. And I've heard this one's super fun. So this is one I'm most excited for. And then the last one, Song of the Thin Man. So let me know what you think of the Thin Man franchise down below. I love those first 3. Time to finally complete the franchise and check them all out. Okay, so for the next category, I think these are just really cozy looking murder mysteries that should be just really fun and relaxing to just sink into. First up, we've got Deathtrap, another Warner Archive Blu-ray. This movie's from the 70s, I believe. Oh no, 1982. Okay, so a little bit more of a modern one for this stack at least. And it's starring Christopher Reeve, Superman himself, and Michael Caine. What a phenomenal pair. And apparently what this movie is about is Michael Caine is a Broadway playwright, kind of a veteran playwright. And then you've got Christopher Reeve, who's one of his students, who writes a really amazing piece of work. And I believe it's about Michael Caine plotting to murder Christopher Reeve in order to steal his work. So it's almost like the backstory of the Phantom of the Opera, where the bad guy steals the Phantom's music and then supposedly kills him. But like for a whole movie, that's just what it made me think of just right now. But I've heard this is super good, and this is one of the earliest Warner Archive releases. So very happy to have bought it and very excited to check this out. I've heard it's just so good. Then it just wouldn't be a murder mystery themed month if you didn't have at least one Agatha Christie film. And the one for this month is Evil Under the Sun. This is a Hercule Poirot movie. Now, I have only seen the Kenneth Branagh Hercule Poirot films. I've seen them all in theaters. Really like the most recent one, by the way, Haunting in Venice. If you missed it, I believe it's streaming by now, and it's really good. But this is one of the older ones. Oh, this is also 1982. And one of the several films starring Peter Ustinov as Hercule Poirot. And I've heard this one's really good. One of my good friends, her name is Lindsay. She hosts the Schlock and Awe podcast. She wrote in her Letterboxd review, and I remember it, that this is her favorite Agatha Christie adaptation. And it's got a phenomenal supporting cast. I mean, it's got Diana Rigg, who I love from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the Bond film, and the Vincent Price movie, Theater of Blood. It's got Roddy McDowall. I mean, how can you not love Roddy McDowall? Apparently, it's just about people out on vacation, and a murder happens, and Hercule Poirot's got to solve the murder. It's filmed on location in Spain. Like, the back says, holidays can be murder. But I looked into it, and I don't think it's a holiday movie. It means holiday like in the British vacation sense. So I bet that's going to have some really just relaxing atmosphere to it. And then we've got a Kino Lorber Blu-ray that I have owned for so long. A guy I know through Twitter recommended this to me, talked about how great it was. I bought it right away and then just didn't watch it, let it sit on my shelf. But this is a black and white movie from 1954, An Inspector Calls. What I know about it is it's a big family who's having like this big family dinner to meet one of the daughter's new fiance, who I don't think they like. And then somebody, I think it's Alistair Sim right here, shows up and things get kind of crazy. And it's based on a play. And I just heard it's really great, and I'm looking forward to finding out what the murder mystery is, because it does call itself a classic murder mystery on the back. So it's exciting that I know that about it, but I know so very little else, so let's find out. By the way, if you're newer to the channel and you're wondering, am I ever going to get to find out what he actually thinks of these movies? Yes, at the end of every month, I do a big ranking video, ranking all the Blu-rays I watched over the past month. So that one's going to be coming probably in very early December. And yeah, I'll talk about all of these that I actually checked out. So make sure you subscribed if you haven't yet, so you won't miss that, in addition to all the other NoveMURDER videos that I'm going to be putting out. And then here we've got a collection of noirs. So I'm not officially doing Noirvember, but I've still got to watch some noir films, right? Because I love them. This one is Naked Alibi. Look at that cover. Come on. Come on. How can you not want to watch that movie? It's starring Sterling Hayden and Gloria Graham, two classic actors that I'm such a big fan of. And I love the premise that I read on the back of the Blu-ray. Apparently, a murder suspect played by Gene Barry is released because of lack of evidence, and he vows revenge against the cops who apparently beat him up during arrest. One of those cops does turn up dead, and then Sterling Hayden is on the case to catch that guy. So it's kind of like hunting down a murderer, but I'm not actually sure if he did do the murder. There might be a mystery to it. I'm not sure. But, you know, Sterling Hayden, Gloria Graham, you cannot possibly go wrong. This looks like a really fun movie. Black and white, also from 1954, and less than 90 minutes, as a lot of noir films are. Then we've got Hangover Square. Now, this one I've actually watched about half of, because this is another one I've owned for a long time, sat on my shelf for a long time. One day I popped it in and watched about half, and I didn't turn it off because I didn't like it. I just got interrupted and forgot to go back to it. I know. Have you ever done that? Just like watched half of a movie and you liked it, but you just didn't go back. I will go back this month. Hangover Square is one of those classic noirs I've heard is amazing. Starring Laird Krieger, Linda Darnell, George Sanders. I actually love George Sanders. And apparently the premise to this is a murder happens and the main guy, who I believe is Laird Krieger, but I hope I pronounced that right. I'm not 100% sure. A murder happens and he has a lot of blackouts. I'm not sure why. and he's not actually sure if he did that murder or not. It actually sounds similar to some of the Inner Sanctum Mysteries with Lon Chaney that I watched and did a video on recently. But this is probably like the classier version because this is a highly respected noir film. And here is another noir, Scarlet Street with Edward G. Robinson. Now, disclaimer here. I'm not sure if this is a murder movie. I read the premise on the back, and it sounds like it has a lot to do with sexuality and revenge and stealing. But the back doesn't say anything about murder, but I just gotta think there's probably murder in this movie. But if not, hey, it's a Noirvember watch at least. I've heard amazing things about this movie, including from a lot of you in comments. Y'all have recommended this to me many times. Yeah, Edward G. Robinson and Joan Bennett, they also did The Woman in the Window together, which is a murder movie and is fantastic. And maybe this one's gonna be even better. I think I've heard some of you guys say that. Okay, that's it with the noirs. Now, the rest of these are actually, yeah, all the rest are movies that maybe you could put more into the horror category, but they still look to be at least kind of murder mystery movies. And a lot of them are movies I was hoping to watch during the spooky season and I never did. So I figured this is my mulligan chance. And I got to throw a little horror in there, right? Y'all know how much I love horror. So here is The Night Stalker and The Night Strangler, TV movies starring Darren McGavin from the 1970s, playing a investigative journalist named Kolchak, who often runs into spooky things. And he actually had a long-running TV show. Well, I don't know if it was that long-running, but a TV show. And as a kid, I either saw one or both of these movies or a bunch of the TV show. I honestly don't remember, but I do have a history with Kolchak. I just don't know exactly what I've seen. But this is the first one, The Night Stalker, and I know this has something to do with vampires, but he's investigating murders, so even if a vampire is doing the murdering, still kind of a murder mystery. This one sounds like it might be a little bit more of like a serial killer or traditional murder movie, but I'm not sure. I'm going to have to check these out. These are more Blu-rays that I've had on my shelf for a long time, and finally I need to check them out. I think this is going to be the month. And here we have When a Stranger Calls. I intended to watch this during the spooky season. I showed it in my horror watch list video. Just never did. But yeah, a woman gets a spooky call and there's a serial killer on the loose and maybe he's going to kill her. Might be kind of a slasher movie, but I think it'll fit in NoveMURDER quite well. And here's a Hammer movie called Fear in the Night. Now, this is another one I've watched about half of, but unlike with Hangover Square, I turned this off because I was really bored. I was not into it, but I want to give it a second chance because it's directed by Jimmy Sangster, who did a lot of the writing for the classic Hammer films, starring Peter Cushing. It's also got Ralph Bates. Doesn't sound like exactly a murder mystery, but a couple moves to a boarding school where the husband gets a job, and the woman seems to be stalked by some spooky killer. And apparently it's got some big twist at the end I've heard about. I'm going to give this another chance, and also I need to watch it because I think it's going to fit in with a Hammer thriller video that I'm planning, so you can look forward to that. And last but definitely not least, because I've heard a lot of great things about this movie, and I know I've said that many times, but hey, I'm watching these movies because I've heard great things. We've got Wait Until Dark. This is the champion of all these films for sat on my shelf for so long before actually watching. Man, this is like one of the first Warner Archive Blu-rays I ever got because it's such a respected movie. People love it. Man, I've just never popped it in. But it's got Audrey Hepburn as a blind woman, I believe, and a serial killer breaks into her house, and it's kind of a cat and mouse game of her trying to survive even though she is blind. I'm almost sure she's blind. Am I... Yeah, okay. I'm right. I would have sounded so dumb if that wasn't true. Yes, indeed. So it's got Alan Arkin even. Yeah, and Audrey Hepburn was nominated for an Oscar for this. People love this movie. I'm finally going to check it out during NoveMURDER. That's my watch list for NoveMURDER. Let me know down in the comments. Do you want to jump in on this? Let me know what murder mystery movies you're thinking about watching this month, or send me some recommendations just in case I have a little bit more time for another movie or two. Make sure you hit the subscribe because I've got videos coming out on that Sherlock Holmes series, on the Criterion sale. Also, Criterion sale, by the time I post this, will have already kicked off. I'm going to do a vlog video hunting down for some cheap Criterions, and the wrap-up video at the end of the month on all the movies that I watched. But if you missed it, check out my last wrap-up video for the month of October, which is actually my last video, and give a like if you enjoy this and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. With all that said, don't forget to enjoy yourself today, don't get murdered, and have some fun. I'll see you later.